Bubsy is back. He is back. The Woolies have struck back. Bubsy has returned and he is here to stay, and there is nothing you or anyone can do about it. He has landed in a flurry of self-aware, "Ooh, aren't I so shit?" memes, one-liners about how nothing he does makes any sense, and frankly banal gameplay. It's the best Bubsy game of all time, and it isn't even close. It's superior to Claws Encounters by virtue of being much more accessible. It's superior to Bubsy 2 by virtue of being comprehensible. It's superior to Fractured Fairy Tales by virtue of not being controlled with this nonsense. And it's superior to Bubsy 3D by virtue of... just kidding. Bubsy 3D is the best game ever made. So the Woolies Strike Back is basically Bubsy, but with almost everything that makes it Bubsy removed, which is a good thing. You still have the one-hit kills, but you can mitigate them with a t-shirt that gives an extra hit point. You can still float, you move at a sane speed this time, and you have an arcing horizontal pounce attack, making you markedly less helpless. The maze-like stages of the original game have settled their shit down into much more linear areas, but still with scope for exploration to some degree. The issue is that there is nothing worth finding, just more yarn. You can max out 600 out of 600 yarn per stage, but there's really no point in doing so. You don't get any new moves or anything as far as I can tell. It's just a bit more normal platforming. Much like that Snoopy game I talked about, it's just some nice normal platforming. The level design is fine, it's decent, it doesn't just wash over you, you have to try and not die in that. It's an actual game, so that's good, that's worth several points. The game functions, big win for Bubsy here. If you've ever played Giana Sisters' Twisted Dreams, it's a bit like that, but less finicky. Less changing into different characters, less manipulating the level layout in real time. In fact, there are no different characters or level layout manipulation, just Bubsy doing stuff. They had a host of characters that they could have worked with. These small children, this armadillo, someone else, this box of bananas, I don't know. It's just a solid, decent platformer. What is there to say about it? It's not as idiosyncratic as Jim Power. Jim Power! It's not as interesting as something like Alfred Chicken. Yeah, the most remarkable thing about it is that it exists. It's just a real thing you can buy, and that in itself is fairly astonishing. An inoffensive and perfectly acceptable platformer released around the same time as Mario Odyssey, so we can see the absolute polar opposite ends of the spectrum of good. This game is good. Mario Odyssey is good. Think about that for the rest of your life. Garfield Labyrinth is an unusual, quite quaint, but rather enjoyable puzzle platformer in which you control the titular, Mondays-hating, lasagna-devouring Garfield the cat as he uses what appears to be a power drill to make his way around Egyptian pyramids and probably some other environments, but I didn't get that far. As I write this, I'm 52 hours into Mario & Luigi Dream Team Bros on the 3DS. I'm in what I assume is the final area, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't, and I'm not done by the time this bit comes out. If you're not familiar with the Mario & Luigi series, it's a load of RPGs made by Alpha Dream. RPGs of fluctuating quality that peaked with the first game on GBA entitled Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga. The major gimmick of the series is the interplay and teamwork of Mario and Luigi, how you work together with Mario on the A button and Luigi on the B button. Combat is turn-based with real-time dodging and countering and special moves requiring user input. It's fun and breezy, and generally the games cap out at roughly 15 to 20 hours. I mean, they have to, really. Ultimately, in combat you're just using your most powerful move, and the extent of the strategy is don't jump on spiky things. The games in this series really can't afford to outstay their welcome when they're so mechanically limited. They're fun as hell, sure, the traversal is enjoyable and the games tend to look great, but it is limited stuff. There's only so much you can tolerate before you just start running from every battle. So Dream Team, at 50 plus hours, is exhausting. I remember saying to friends that I put so much time into it that I felt compelled to finish the game, and that was 25 hours ago. Like, the game is over twice as long as it should be. If a game is mechanically rich and diverse, then I don't mind a lengthy journey, but this is kind of like watching the same gently entertaining episode of The Vicar of Dibley 100 times in a row. I can't reasonably say Dream Team is a bad game. It's gorgeous to look at, and the exploration, as I said, is genuinely fun, but a few too many tutorials and way too much padding really let it down. I'd say the worst thing about it is it introduces a lot of different, potentially interesting ways to traverse the game's side-scrolling areas, then never once makes them even briefly challenging. Just moving around isn't engaging, there's got to be some sort of skill required besides persistence. I was going to end this with a hilarious joke about the game having a sleep-based theme and how it put me to sleep, but I came to the conclusion that it wasn't funny, so I've opted not to. So that's the end of this bit. Bye. The Real Ghostbusters is an unusual, quite quaint, but rather enjoyable puzzle platformer in which you star as the titular Ghostbuster, Peter Venkman, as he explores a sort of Egyptian pyramid with his proton laser, which acts as some kind of power drill. You walk around mostly this pyramid environment, but I mean, I don't know if you go anywhere else. I didn't get that far. It felt too familiar, so I stopped playing.
He's gonna play the video games. He doesn't like the video games. He's a furious video games man.
Fresh as a daisy. If your game doesn't have an FOV slider, fuck off.
Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is one of those games that makes me think I might have mental problems, or that I might be living in some sort of They Live-esque scenario, where only I can see the truth behind society, except it's insanely specifically about this one Donkey Kong game. The thing is, ask anyone, anywhere, and they'll tell you one of two things. First, and most commonly, they'll tell you they don't know what a Donkey Kong is and to get out of their garden. If they don't say that, they'll say it's a masterpiece and one of the best 2D platform games ever made, and to get out of their garden. Now, what makes me think I might be Roddy Piper is that the game puts me to sleep every time I play it. I find it utterly dull throughout, pretty, but the level design is so homogenized and unexciting compared to the original Returns that I just glaze over. I'm just going through the platforming motions. Despite the spectacle is just so boring to me, and I truly don't know what everyone sees in it. Maybe a perfect storm of sequel to cult hit on underperforming cult platform, and, well, you know, Nintendo fans. Crazy, wonderful Nintendo fans. Okay, so here's the thing. I've seen a couple of videos about how good the level design is in this game. They tend to be along the lines of game introduces thing in non-threatening scenario, game introduces quirk of thing, escalates thing. This is presented as though this is somehow a remarkable or fresh approach to level design. My question is, how so? I mean, it's not a case of criticising a game for being casual or whatever gamer nonsense, but how is this formulaic approach in any way impressive? There are some creative and clever ways in which the aesthetics inform the gameplay, shape the obstacles you're tackling, but overall, when is this gentle toe-dipping approach to a game ever going to surprise or excite you? People are always going on about its visuals, and sure, they're clean, but what's exciting about those inherently 90s looking rendered characters about a penguin wearing a Viking helmet that's supposed to be world class? Sorry, but no. Don't get me wrong, the original games aren't exactly an aesthetic marvel, especially the characters, but there are traditions it's okay to let go of. A lot was made of Tropical Freeze's predecessor, Donkey Kong Country Returns, being difficult, and the later levels certainly were, but the surprises, the thrills and spills were so much more memorable. Yeah, it could be eager to kill you, but what better way to create a sense of danger, of high stakes? It's not a get good thing, it's just surprising the player isn't a bad thing. And Tropical Freeze is so safe and cozy that while it's pleasant enough, I just feel like I'm, like I said, going through the motions. I guess you could read this as an argument for bad level design if you wanted to hang me, but I feel as though a lot of what I see criticised as bad design is often interesting, memorable design. Tropical Freeze is just, it plays smoothly, and that's it. And, you know, that's not enough. Recently I've been on a bit of a Call of Duty kick. Not the multiplayer, I hasten to add, not that there's anything wrong with it I'm aware of, it's just not really my thing, so I've been playing the campaigns. I finished off the original Call of Duty Black Ops after a long time of on-off play, like 3-4 years. Then moved on to Black Ops 2, also jumping on a bit of the original Modern Warfare and World at War, as well as the more contemporary Advanced Warfare and Infinite Warfare. As I was swapping games and noting their similarities, I was also taken by how immediate immediate the gameplay was. Sure, there's story in there, an often quite accomplished presentation of military action, which I have to confess I find engaging, but by and large it's firefight after firefight, and while a lot of it is very scripted in service of the storytelling, the moment-to-moment gameplay is very snappy and exciting. It's also very much single-minded. The find cover, shoot bad lads focus is almost never deviated from, and when it is, it's usually for a brief, extremely scripted bit of spectacle that lasts a few seconds before throwing you right back into the shoot-mans. And, you know, it's pretty pick-up-and-play as a result. The snap to target feels good, smooth. All the games in the series I've played have run at 60 frames per second. They feel polished, robust, and I realised how much they reminded me of old games. Not old FPS titles like Doom. Call of Duty couldn't be further from that, but old run-and-gun stuff like Contra, old arcade games, old NES games, Mega Drive, that instant gratification thing. It's that exact same ethos of instant gameplay applied to a contemporary setting, to that quick-fire gameplay. Call of Duty is realistic in the way that the Jurassic Park games on Mega Drive are realistic. You don't have this stylized, big cartoony head thing of a contemporary, in some ways realistic setting, but then the action itself is extremely OTT, though it's believable within this blockbuster world they've created. A lot like Contra, I'd say. So Call of Duty is basically a NES game. It pushes the same buttons. Hop in, play, hop out. Mickey Mouse 4 is an unusual, quite quaint, but rather this is the same fucking game again. They just kept releasing the same game. Garfield and the Ghostbusters and Mickey Mouse, they couldn't even make it like a round alliterative G, like some other G franchise like G Police or like GoBots or like Gundam Wing or, I don't know, something else beginning with G, Gogglebox, Ormond Street Children's Hospital, I don't fucking know. I hate this. I don't want to review any more of the same game. I'm fed up. I want to stop this now. Do you know how long it took me to make this episode? You do. You can check. I put up a trailer that was like, oh, the next thing will be out in like a week, and that was like 1,000 years ago. I just completely blew it on this one. I tried so hard and got so far, and in the end, it doesn't even matter.